Today's episode of How to JSON Do That is brought to you by Tenacra, Bellcat, Realms, Visual Studio Code, the browser of your choice, HTML, and CSS. Hello, and welcome to How to JSON Do That. Today I will be showing you how to center content inside of a CSS box. I'm sure all of you CSS people out there have run into this. You'll want to center the text in the box, but not just horizontally, but vertically as well. Sure, you could eyeball it by using margins and paddings, but no doubt you've been looking for a solution that dynamically centers that content within the box without having to eyeball it. That's what I'll be showing you today. We'll be using two methods in this video to get the results. We'll be using traditional CSS as well as CSS Flexbox. To do this yourself, you will need a code editor of some sort and a browser. For this demonstration, I will be using Visual Studio Code. It doesn't really matter what you prefer to use, the results will be the same. Before we get started today though, don't forget to hit subscribe, click the bell icon to get notified when another one of my videos becomes available, and please leave your comments below. Let's do this. As you can see, I have Visual Studio Code on the left and the browser of my choice on the right, which happens to be Google Chrome for this demonstration. On the left pane of Visual Studio Code, you'll see the Explorer. I have already opened Visual Studio Code in a folder called Working Files. You can open it wherever you'd like. What we're going to do is we're going to hit this new file icon and create a new file. I'm going to call it index.html. This will automatically open up that index.html file. Start typing in HTML and choose HTML:5, and this will give you a boilerplate HTML template for us to work with. Now, to center contents within a box, we have to create that box. So we're going to use our handy div tag, and we'll just give it the name box. Try that again. And within that box, I'm just going to put a span tag. Give it, actually not bother giving it a class at all. We'll just say some text, because we're going to try to center some text within a box. So I'm going to save this, and as you can see, we have some text. It's obviously not centered. So let's do some styling on this. Normally you would have your CSS in a separate file, but for this demonstration we're just going to have it inline within this document. Well, not inline, but within the document. So in the head, I'm going to put style, and we're going to start building out the classes. So we have box. So I'm going to go dot box, give this a background color of red. We'll save it and refresh it. So definitely we have a background color that's red. Okay, let's make this an actual box we could do something with. Let's give it a good width of say 300 pixels, a height of 300 pixels, and you know, instead of having a background color, which is kind of honestly hard on the eyes, we're going to give this box a border of 1 pixel. We're going to make it solid and black. That way we can see it. We're also going to display this as a block. So when I refresh this, you'll see that it is a big block that's exactly 300 pixels wide by 300 pixels deep. So now we want to get that text centered within the box. So what you need to do now is target that span. So within box, and I'm a big fan of specificity, so we're going to go box and then its child span. We are going to give it a position of absolute. Now, centering content within the box, you also want to make sure that its parent has a position element as well. So we're going to give this a position of relative. So this is very important to remember. If you're going to center a span or a block within another box, make sure that the parent has relative or some sort of position statement, and then the child has a position of absolute. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shift that over. Because we have the position absolute, we're now able to use top, and we're going to make it go down from the top 50%, and we're going to make it go from the left 50%. I'll hit save, and by looking at that you think we're done. So if I refresh, there it is. Oh wait, it's not quite centered. And I'll show you how it's not centered. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the span, and I'm going to give it another border. We're going to make it red this time, so we'll go 1 pixel solid in red, and we'll refresh that. So what's happened here is it did shift it down 50% and left 50%. But where it shifted it from was the top left corner. So you'll notice that the top left corner here is actually centered, but the text isn't. So how do we fix that? So what we want to do is we want to shift this over 50% of its width and up 50% of its height. So what we're going to tap into is the transform, and we'll go translate, and within brackets we'll go minus 50% and minus 50% in the y-axis. So the idea here is it's shifting it 50% of its width to the left and 50% of its height up. So we'll hit save and we'll have a look. And now we'll notice that the text is indeed centered perfectly within that square. So no matter what we do to the size of that square, if we make it 500 pixels by 500 pixels and save, that text is still centered. Even if we make it in a regular shape, perhaps the height is only 200. It's still centered within that. So that's absolutely perfect. So that's the more traditional way of doing this with CSS. I'm now going to show you how you can do this in CSS Box. So we're just going to reset all of these back to nothing. And we'll start with that. We'll hit save and refresh. So we'll start actually. I probably shouldn't have deleted it, but we'll put border back in. We'll go with a 1 pixel solid border again. That's black for the outside. And then a border that is 1 pixel solid and red for the inside. We'll just refresh that and you can see here it is. So now we're going to get the box and we're going to give it again another width. We'll just go with 300 pixels and a height of 300 pixels. Save it and we'll see that the text is again stuck at the top left corner. So using CSS Flex, we can do this a different way now. So instead of displaying it as a block, we're going to display this as a flex. We'll hit save. As you noticed, it kind of changed its look. So what we're going to do now is we're going to tell it how we want to behave, how we want the children elements to behave, like the span. So we're going to go align items to center. We'll hit save, and it centered it vertically. And if we choose justify content and choose center, hit save, it is now perfectly centered within there without having to transform the position of the span on the inside. So there's two ways you can do it now. The traditional CSS way by using position absolute with a top 50%, left 50%, and then translate it to the left and up by 50% of the child element. Or you can use this CSS Flex box. Or you can use CSS Flex by just using the display flex, that the child elements will be centered vertically and horizontally with align items and justify content. Thank you for joining me today on this video on how to center content using CSS. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and leave your comments below. And please visit my channel again to see how did Jason do that. And until next time, take care. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel. Please check out some of my other videos.